I don't think the roster's changed. So, I don't think the roster's changed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and as always, you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. I suggest you do that, and you can follow me. Apologies to the people who did tweet me this morning. I was not studying the start of the NBA slate today. I was doing some stuff with my son, so I wasn't completely locked in. So I apologize if I didn't get to your questions this morning. Normally, you know that I'm on top of those things, and I will get back to you. But this morning, I was not there for lineup block because again, I wasn't right locked in when that was happening this morning. So I do apologise for the delay in responses there. Today, we're going to be looking back at all of Friday's games. We're going to be previewing Saturday's action. So
let's get to it.
We will get to it. Michael Bolton, the monstrous line of the night. Big Al Horford. I know a lot of you that owned Al Horford were frustrated with his concussion. A lot of people throwing out conspiracy theories. There's something else wrong. Why is his concussion taking so long? Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. It's all sorted now. Horford's putting up ridiculous numbers, and he did it again today. He's had 26 points. He hit 4 triples, and this is a guy that before last season couldn't hit a 3 at all. 8 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 6 blocks. That's where he really gets it done, is in those defensive numbers today. He was 10 of 18 from the field. He hit both of his free throws. And as I said, he's been an absolute monster this season. And shockingly enough, he's been a top 10 player this year. Yes, so far this season. I don't necessarily think it's going to hold, and a lot of it is to do with a ridiculously elevated block rate. He's almost at 3 blocks a game this season. He was at 1.5 last season, 1.3 the year before. Over the last 6 games, he's at a steal and 3.2 blocks. Hasn't missed a free throw in that time, and has hit 53% of his field goal attempts. These numbers are ridiculous. He's averaging almost 5 assists a game. I don't even know what to say about what Horford's doing, but it's very, very impressive. Yeah, he's only played 9 games this season, but in 9 games to have blocked 26 shots is a huge amount. He only blocked 122 all of last season, so we're talking about him being on a ridiculous pace at this point. And you absolutely have to love it. It's going to drop. The percentages are fine. 83 and 53, that's pretty standard for him. 42 from 3 is maybe a little bit elevated, but I don't think he's sticking at 5 assists, although that one could be possible. He could stick at that. The 3 blocks a game is probably where I say, you know what, maybe you're pushing the friendship a little bit there, Al. I'm not quite sure if you're going to be able to stick at 3 blocks a game, but there's not like there's other guys in here siphoning blocks away from Horford in Boston. Just be really happy with where you picked him and with this extra production that's happening now. If you think that maybe it's a sell high and you get offered a top 12, top 15 guy back, I would absolutely be looking into doing that. Because as I said, I just don't think that this elevated block rate that he's putting up is going to remain. And that's, when you look at what's fueling it, and you can go on Basketball Monster, look at the Z scores, and you see this really fluorescent bright green almost in the block column. That's what's fueling the elevated ranking. And if that comes back down and that halves, then we drop 10, 15, 20 spots in the rankings. And that's the big difference there. So have a look at that. But, otherwise, I don't really think you can complain too much about what Horford's had since before he got hurt. And since he's got hurt, obviously that absence in the middle was a frustrating time. But it's all good now. The waiver wire line of the night. Been waiting for a while for this one. I've been pretty exciting. You could say that I'm ready to get my cock out today because it's here. It's Kyle Quinn. He's the waiver wire line of the night. Jeff Hornacek, he whipped his cock out, and it came to fruition. It actually worked. We had a massive cock explosion. I love cock. I'm a huge Kyle Quinn fan. I have been for years and years and years, or as long as he's been in the league. And I feel like he's been completely misplayed in New York. 20 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 9 of 11 from the field. He hit both free throws. And if you've listened to this podcast long enough, you would have heard me speak about Cock plenty of times and say, if he gets the minutes, the stats are going to come. There's pretty much no doubt of that in my mind. His per 36 numbers over the last 2 weeks, 12 and 12, 3 assists, 1.5 blocks, 60 and 75 as percentages. They're obviously very impressive numbers. The problem is that from time to time, Billy Hernan-Gomez has played more minutes than him. Marshall Plumlee played more minutes than him. And Joakim Noah, who was out of this game, will play minutes over him. They've got Kristaps Porzingis, who plays at center as well. So, for as much as I love Cock, it's going to be hard for him to continue in this role, but at least more people are actually seeing what he can do. He was a little bit buried in Orlando in his time there, which is really started to shine until they inexplicably took him out of the rotation, which I probably should rephrase it, because if it was any other team, it would be an inexplicable removing from the rotation. But with Orlando, young players with potential, we don't need them. Let's get rid of them. Let's get rid of them for nothing. That's MO from Rob Hannigan. Mo Harkless, you're a young player with potential who plays well. Why don't we give you away for nothing? Kyle O'Quinn, you've shown lots of flashes. You've started for Nick Vucevic and been good. Oh, let's keep you out of the rotation completely. And then I can go into Vic Oladipo, I can go into Toby Harris. But this is it from Cock. This is a huge performance. This is exactly that he can do. It's a little bit elevated, obviously, with the shooting percentages. But the presence of Billy, the presence of Joakim, is going to make it hard for him to be a guy that does that all year. Now, in his limited minutes, 14 a game, he's still ranked 200th this season. In the last 2 weeks, where he's played 20 minutes a game, he's ranked inside the top 140. So, inside the top 140, that means at 14-team leagues, you have to look at him. And I think that he's probably a 14 to 16 team league guy at the moment, but we know, and I'm glad that I don't feel crazy, because I continually say this, he does have this potential to be a top 100 guy if the minutes were to come his way. So shout out to Kyle O'Quinn, shout out to the Knicks for actually letting him play and seeing what he can do, and let's see where it goes from here. I'm a little bit skeptical of much happening from there, though. If you want to hear more about the Knicks, and if you want to hear more about Cock, listen to Jared Dubin on Locked On Knicks. Jared will have all your Cock information for you. He'll cover the big performance from Kyle O'Quinn and everything else going on with the Knicks. The return of Joakim Noah, the play of Kristaps Porzingis, Derrick Rose, Brandon Jennings, backcourt, Courtney Lee's ankle. And Jared will have all that covered over on Locked On Knicks, so I suggest you go and check that out. The young gun of the night, Big Karl Towns at it again. Not quite the 47-point game from the other day, but 20 points with 3 triples, 8 boards, 1 assist and 3 blocks is still real impressive. The 5 of 18 shooting is obviously far from impressive. The 7 of 8 from the line is good, and he's starting to crank it up again now. He's cranking himself inside the top 15 over the last week, averaging 26 and 12. And we talked about him maybe at the start of the week, how he'd probably been a little below expectation. He's still just that little bit below, mainly due to a big drop in field goal percentage and free throw percentage. True shooting down from 59 to 57. That's a significant drop, and it does hurt across both of those categories. And I guess his true shooting is really only helped by the fact that he's up to 39% from 3 this season. But Towns is starting to get it going again, and look, you might have been disappointed. You would have been really disappointed if you grabbed Towns at 3, which was not something I ever advocated for heading into the season, but some places were and some people did. But if you went for him at 5 or 6, you'd probably be feeling a little bit disappointed at this point. But I think that he finishes the season inside the top 12 and will be fine in that regard. The dud of the night, we're sticking with Minnesota. Three awards from the same game. Gorgie Dieng was the dud of the night. Just the 2 points for Gorgie, 5 boards, 1 of 2 from the field. He battled foul trouble in this game, so that really that limited what he was able to do here. He's struggling a little bit at the moment. He seems to be the guy in the starting 5 that Tom Thibodeau has the quickest hook for. But some nights he'll play 40 minutes, and some nights he'll play 28 minutes, and some nights like today, then he'll really struggle with the fouls. I'd be chalking this one up to just foul related, but if it was Wiggins, if it was Levine, if it was Towns, they'd be more likely to play through that than what Dieng is. We saw Cole Aldrich, another one of my boys, really push through and play a fantastic game, which is another thing that I've been really disappointed with Aldrich this season, because I say how good of a player he is, and he hasn't shown it. Well, he did today, so it's good to know that he's still got it, and he was playing well alongside Towns with Dieng on the bench. I don't think that's any sort of permanent move. Obviously, the team needs some sort of a shake-up. Is that a replacement of Dieng with Aldrich? I would be highly doubtful that's the case. But now Dieng's just going to be this guy that hovers around that top 50 zone, who gives you good percentages with a steal and a block and good rebounds, and the scoring's not going to quite be there. But everything else, should be pretty impressive for Gorgie Jeng. And I just chalked this one up to not a great night, and that's exactly what it was. Let's look at these games now, go through the box scores. The first one, the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Magic scored over 100 points. I know it's a shock to everybody. We'll start off with Aaron Gordon, who was good. And I know I spent a lot of time this week talking about his confidence and his play and the way he's being used. He still only played 25 minutes. Now, he started, which is good, and he's continuing to start. He scored 20 points, which is almost a career high for Aaron Gordon. But it came on 9 of 14 shooting, and we talked about how just ridiculously low all his percentages had been up until this game. So there was going to be a chance for him to regress back to the mean, and it happened here. But the thing to me is that only 2 boards, no steals, 1 block. That's a little bit disappointing. And the fact that he was playing well, and he still played only 25 minutes is a frustrating experience. But when you're looking at the back end of your roster, and you're looking at that 13th spot on your roster, what are you doing with it? Are you dropping Aaron Gordon for Jared Bayless? For Dario Saric? Who's got the higher upside? And that's, I'll probably look at it that way until we get to January, February, really, and maybe rotate that spot through. Where's my upside? Who's going to come good? Who's going to come good? Rather than who's going to give me solid, steady production at that point. Now, it is still not easy to hold on to Aaron Gordon. He's not going to shoot 35%. He's not going to shoot 64% either. And that fueled his 20-point outing, and nothing else came in the other areas, and it was a good night for him, and he played just 25 minutes. So there is still some signs for concern, by all means. And when I talk about upside and potential, you grab him. You grab him off the waiver wire because he's going to have higher upside than anyone else that's out there. But by no means is he, I'm absolutely dropping someone on my team who's going to have guaranteed value, or am I absolutely holding on to him in place of someone on the waiver wire who's got guaranteed value, long-term, top 100 type numbers? But it's great as an owner to get that sort of a night. Nick Vucevic, man, huge night from him. 12 and 11, 5 assists, 2 triples, 1 steal, 1 block in 27 minutes. This is something we talked about in the preseason. Even off the bench, he can put up big minutes, and he's sort of settling into this role. I wish it was 34 minutes because I don't believe in Bismack Biyombo. But in 27 to 30 that he's currently getting, he's providing that 50-ish type range and just continually double-doubles, basically. Jody Meeks made his season debut. 10 points with 2 triples, the 3 steals in 17 minutes. I think the minutes are fine. I think the minutes are real. Obviously, Frank Vogel has no love for Mario Hezonja. CJ Watson's a nothing. CJ Wilcox doesn't play. So Meeks is going to get this sort of a role off the bench. But it's going to be deeper league stuff only. 16, 4, and 3 for Fournier. Ibaka had a 1-1 with 16 and 4. Decent numbers. And actually, Jeffrey Green put up some good numbers. 16 and 6 in 23 minutes and 2 triples. We're only looking at him in, say, 16-team leagues. The point guards, DJ Augustine, 9, 3, and 4. He played 22, so Lord Alfred Payton, he played 24. So more minutes for Payton there. Wasn't a great night for Payton. 2 points, 4 assists, and a steal. I am still holding Payton in most 12ers, and I'm not adding DJ Augustine in most 12-team leagues, but there's always going to be different situations or different stories as to whether you hold or grab a guy. For Payton in a 10-team league, far from a must-own guy. On to the Sixers, Joel Embiid, the process, his numbers are up, his minutes are up, 27 here, his limit is 28, just the casual 25 and 10 with 3 triples and 4 assists for Embiid. What do you want to say about this guy? Seriously, how good is he? He's just putting up ridiculous numbers. And I hang crap on a lot of people, on a lot of players, in nothing personal against them. I have to give credit to Jahlil Okafor. He has played well the last couple of games. A 16 and 13 double-double in 28 minutes. He shared the court with Embiid for really the first time this season. He had 2 blocks and he was 8 of 10 from the field. I still don't think that he's a must-own 12-team league guy, but the way that he's improving over the last couple is encouraging. Now, I'm also getting a lot of questions. Do I stash Nerlens Noel? And do I stash Ben Simmons? I'll give you my thoughts on those. Nerlens Noel, what minutes is he getting? Is he getting 30 minutes? No, not a chance. Is he getting 25 minutes? Feels like a stretch. Where does the 25 come from? Does 12 come off Jahlil Okafor? No. Does any come off Joel Embiid? Of course not. Does it come off Ilyasova? Yeah, a couple might come off there. Does it come off Saric? Yeah, a couple might come off there. But he's not getting to 25 minutes, I don't think. He's probably going to be at low 20s. We have the memory of Nerlens Noel, and I still think he's a good player, and I still think he can contribute. But he's not going to contribute too much on this team. He's not going to play enough minutes for him to be a must-own guy. As for Simmons, apparently he's trending as an ad player. Like, this is the guy that everyone's grabbing. He's probably a month away from returning. And when he returns, do you think he's waltzing back into a 30-minute role? And he's a rookie? I know he's potentially a good rookie, but a rookie who's 4 months behind in his development, who will be on a minutes limit, who will probably sit back-to-back games. I don't see the appeal to hold on. Now, if you've got an IR spot, of course. If you don't, then it's suicidal. You're waiting a month, and then you might be waiting another month for him to play 28 a night. It might take that long, and we don't even know for sure that he's coming back in January. This was the initial timetable we were given 2 months ago, but we haven't heard any information since then. So I don't believe that Simmons or Noel are absolute must-stash guys. Different situations all the time, though. No Jared Bayless, a Spanish chocolate, 25 for him, 8, 3, and 7 with a block. Continues to provide short-term value while Bayless is out, and Bob Cove only played the 23 minutes, hit 3 triples, 9-6 with 2 steals, but he suffered a knee strain, so we'll have to check on his status moving forward. You know that my thoughts on him means that he's a must-own sort of a player. Ilyasova and Šarić, neither of those guys got to 20 minutes with more Okafor and Embiid on the court, and that's going to be something that impacts Simmons, or maybe not Simmons, but yeah, Simmons, because he's just not going to play the big minutes, and Noel as well. Nick Stauskas, he'd been shooting well. He didn't today. 0 of 6 for 0 points. Did have 5 assists, which is something he came out of Michigan being able to do, is pass the ball. The Lakers and the Raptors, just an absolute smashing. But the positive here is Brandon Ingram. And I have talked about him quite a lot lately. Nothing happened defensively, but 17 and 6 on 8 of 16 shooting, which is great. The minutes are there. He's going to be starting for at least the next month, and you wouldn't be surprised if he just stuck in this starting 30-plus minute role. I still don't think that he is an absolute must-own guy, but I've been mentioning it for a week or so, that in leagues where you can afford your guys to maybe be inactive on the bench, then you should be grabbing him, and you absolutely need to do that. And even in, say, a 12-team league now, for this short period of time, daily changes, you can afford to have Ingram and just see where it goes, because it is definitely trending in the right direction. Julius Randle wasn't his best night, 8 and 8 in 22 minutes, while Larry Nance, he suffered a knee injury as well, knee contusion, 6 and 6 for Nance in 23 minutes. If you're only in a 12-team league, it doesn't appear to be a severe injury, but anything can happen with a knee, obviously, so we need to check on that to make sure that he's okay moving forward. Louis Williams, 13 points on 14 shots. The field goal percentage regression kicks in. And Jordy Clarkson, 14 in 31 minutes, 2 steals and just the 1 assist. He just had 4 of 15 shooting as well. It wasn't a good night for the majority of the Lakers guys. On to the Raptors. Kyle Lowry was crazy, 8 of 12 for 24 points, 6 triples, 7 assists and a steal. Fantastic stuff there. No one needed to play big minutes, and this was a risk with these Raptors guys. 16, 4, and 6 with 2 steals for DeRozan. Not an efficient night there. And we had Jonas Valanciunas just 6 and 7 in 24 minutes. Again, no one needed to play big minutes, but we got an impressive Bebe night. 13 and 3 for Bebe in 18 minutes, 2 steals and 2 blocks. I do like Bebe, but I just don't believe that his minutes are going to be big enough in most situations to justify ownership outside of, say, a 16-team league. Corey Joseph was a nice, with Lowry limited with his minutes due to the blowout, 14, 2, and 4 for Joseph. And Pat, 7 boards, providing nice, decent 12-team value. My boy Norm Powell, he got the start with Damari Carroll resting, 16 and 7 in 32 minutes for Powell, 2 triples, 2 assists. How Dwayne Casey can't find a spot in the rotation for Powell on most nights is one of the more confusing situations of the season. You know that I'm very big on Powell, and the fact that he goes and, let's start you, Norman, play you 32 minutes, and you be a really key part of things, but then on other nights, you just don't play at all. It's weird. I don't think he's really had any struggle whatsoever with anything he's done so far, but he's, just struggles to get into the rotation most nights. Weird stuff. But in the end, it was a smashing by the Raptors. The Wolves and the Knicks, my boy Cole Aldrich, this is what he can do. 27 minutes for Aldrich, 10 and 12, 2 steals and 3 blocks. 27 minutes is key. Last year, he was racking up massive rebounding numbers, big steals, big blocks, big percentages in limited minutes. He's got less minutes this season, which is a bother to me because I thought he could have played some more, and I think he can be useful to this team. Whether that continues moving forward, I've got no idea. This was a weird situation where, Thibodeau had to limit what Jeng did. He played only the 18 minutes, Jeng, and that gave Aldrich more playing time. Bielitsa had 17, 7, and 3, a good night there as well. And Zachary Levine, 23 in 40 minutes. He is playing an absolute mountain of minutes, Levine. And it's no surprise when you're a wing and you play under Tom Thibodeau, that's just what happens. Andy Wiggins, 19 points in 36 minutes for Wiggo, 3 rebounds and 4 assists. So the assists, he's getting a few bunches of 4 now, which is obviously better than what he'd been doing prior to that. A struggle for Rick Rubio again. He played in the fourth quarter. He played 30 minutes, so that's a positive there. But 3 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists and a steal. I know you're not. That's not great. I still believe that Rubio is a guy that you're holding in all leagues, but it's a clear struggle at this point. On to the Knicks. Melo, 29, 5 and 3, 3 steals, 5 triples. You love that. No Joakim Noah, no Courtney Lee. So we had Justin Holiday get the start, and he was fantastic. 31 minutes for Holiday, 13 and 7 with 2 triples, 3 steals and a block. We've seen him do this a couple of times this season. It's not altogether reliable. We don't know how long Lee's going to be out. It doesn't appear to be a long-term thing. Holiday would purely be a streaming type of guy. Really nice Derrick Rose night, 9 of 15 for 24 points. Only 6 of 10 from the line, which is not ideal, but 5 rebounds, 5 assists, getting some good numbers there. And it wasn't a great Porzingis night. 2 of 12. Percentages. Thank you, Stephen. 2 of 12 for 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, 2 triples. So still helping out even on a night when the shot isn't falling. Brandon Jennings also struggled. This is a good opportunity for Jennings to step into some minutes with Lee out. He played only 19, had only 2 points, but did facilitate well, having 8 assists, so that obviously helps you in that category. He is a borderline 12-team league guy at the moment. Sacramento at Boston. Boogie just doing what he does. 28 and 9, 3 assists, 2 triples, a steal and 4 blocks, and 10 of 26 from the field. So that's the standard frustration with DeMarcus Cousins. The frustration with Darren Collison is building. Ty Lawson is struggling, but he's taking minutes away. 21 minutes for Lawson, 8, 3, and 4, while Collison played just 28 and went 13 with 3 assists and 2 steals. He's still a guy you're owning, Collison, but not realizing his full potential with the way that Dave Yeager is using Ty Lawson. Rudy Gay, 13, 8, and 3. Just really stock solid numbers, whereas the 2 starters who really shouldn't be starters, Costa Koufos and Aaron Aflalo, 17 minutes for Aflalo, 9 minutes for Koufos, because Matty Barnes, this is the game that I've been telling you about with Barnes. 12 and 16, a 3, 2 steals, and a block. He was only 3 of 11 from the field, so it wasn't fueled by hot shooting. He was contributing in every area, and that's what the Barnes that I know can do. The problem is that he just has been so poor at that the last couple of games. He's always got this ability, and he can be a 12-team league guy, and he should definitely be on your watch list at least, or added to teams, because he is going to play this 27 to 30-minute role, depending on how each game goes, as to how active he gets, though, and that's the confusing part. We also saw Omri Caspi play 27 minutes with Koufos limited to 9, 7 and 5 for Caspi. I like what Caspi can do if he's in a better situation. He's just not at this point. For the Celtics, Avery Bradley, 15 and 9. Decent performance there with 2 steals. Jay Crowder was good as well, 16, 3 and 3, and he played 37 minutes. So that's a huge positive. And Isaiah Thomas had 23 and 7 with 2 steals, but it took him 21 shots to get there. The big men, Kelly Olynyk back to 17 minutes, 2 and 5, and this is what I talked about the last time when he put up a big performance, is that he's going to play so sporadically that you can't trust when it's going to happen. I still think he's a good player, but he's not going to get the playing time that he needs. Amir Johnson started, played 15 minutes. We had minutes for Jonas Jerebko. We had some Tyler Zeller in there. We had some Jaylen Brown. We had James Young get playing time. And we had Marcus Smart struggle. 3 points with just 3 assists and a block. A lot of people will be ready to drop Smart. I'm not, but I can totally understand it. He is probably the worst player on your team. So if you need to make a move, if you want to stream it in, he is going through a pretty significant slump at the moment and is not in the same sort of spot that he was in before that, or when Jay Crowder was injured. Cleveland and Chicago. LeBron normally does really well against Chicago. He was not fantastic, but he was okay. 27, 5, and 13. No real other peripheral stats, though, in a loss for Cleveland. Love, 15 and 9 with 3 triples, and Kyrie, the 26 and 8 with a steal. So good nights from their big guys. Not much else happening in Cleveland, though. J.R. Smith actually hit some shots. He had 9 points, including 3 triples, and that's a real start there. But he is not a 12-team league guy in my mind. And really not much else happening with Cleveland. They ran just on a back-to-back, just an 8-man rotation. Channing Frye off the bench played 21 and scored 11, hitting a 3, but he is really just a 3-point streaming specialist, and that's probably about it for Frye. Onto the Bulls. Rajon Rondo, triple-double. He's playing well at the moment. I give people credit even when I don't think that they're good players, and that's Rondo. 15, 11, and 12, 3 steals, 1 block, 1 triple, and was 7 of 12 from the field. Really getting things done. Still has his defensive issues a lot of the time, but the team is winning at the moment, and he is playing somewhat of a part. Taj Gibson was fantastic as well. 40 minutes for Taj. That's a huge amount of playing time. 23, 11, and 5 with a steal, while Butler went 26, 8, 6 with 3 steals and 2 blocks in a massive performance in 42 minutes. Dwayne Wade, he was always in line for a big one against LeBron, and he did it again. 24, 5, and 4 with 2 steals. He's going to sit out on Saturday, and that's going to allow Nick Mirotic to have an opportunity. I would guess last time Wade sat, Mirotic started and was great. Just the 22 for Mirotic on 1 of 9 shooting. 2 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block. He can still do it, and I think he's going to be a good DFS option and a good stream option for Saturday's games if you've got that spot. Robin Lopez didn't block 8 shots again. I'm sure you're surprised. 26 minutes for Lopez, 10 and 5. That's probably getting close to more what you should expect on a nightly basis from Lopez. Detroit and Atlanta, man, I don't know. An absolute killing. Detroit just killed them. It was ugly. It was almost 40 points in the end. Johnny Lua got really hot, 5 of 6 shooting, hit 4 triples, 16 points and 9 boards. A solid 12-team league guy without much upside, though, although this is a good performance, clearly. Toby Harris had 18 and 7 with 2 blocks. You love that. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has really stepped it up. 23 and 8, 5 triples and a steal. No assists. He might lose a bit when Reggie Jackson comes back in the next couple of days, but huge performance there as well. Ish Smith was good. Amazingly, 11, 5, and 13 for Ish. He will remain the starter when Jackson comes back, at least for a couple of games, I would imagine, and then Jackson will be eased in. He won't be the starter long term, in case I caused any confusion there, but he will probably still start for the first couple. So when you see Reggie Jackson's coming back and he's coming back off the bench, I wouldn't look at it and go, okay, Ish is keeping this job full time. I don't think there's any way that that's happening, but that is likely how they'll ease back into things. Marcus Morris, this is the Marcus Morris that I know. 12 points on 12 shots, not much else in 29 minutes. Sure, he's an ownable guy, but his upside is extraordinarily low. Darren Hilliard in the game ahead of Stan Johnson again. And in a game that they won by 40 points, we got under 4 minutes of Stan Johnson. His career has tanked. I still believe in Johnson. I still believe he can get back from this. He is an ultimate buy low dynasty guy. Onto the Hawks, they benched the starting 5 at halftime. There's not a lot to love unless you're a Dennis Schroeder person. 17, 2, and 11 for Schroeder in 25 minutes. So that's a positive. There's nothing else that's positive. Paul Millsap did not play. Kent Bazemore was dreadful. Tabo was bad. Dwight Howard scored 2 points. Mike Muscala at least scored. The last time that Paul Millsap was out, he didn't. He had 11 points in his 24 minutes. Nothing to be gained by looking at this, except that Mike Budenholzer said he's looking to shake up the starting lineup. Now, does that mean that Kyle Korver comes off the bench? Does that mean that Bazemore comes off the bench? Who starts? Thabo? Probably. Tim Hardaway? Maybe. Torian Prince into the rotation? Who knows what it means exactly, but there's definitely some changes afoot in Atlanta. Doesn't mean you need to go and grab anyone or anything like that. And look, if Hardaway replaces Korver, he's not going to be a must-own guy. If Tabo replaces Korver, he's not going to be a must-own guy. But obviously, Korver's not a must-own anyway. But if Bazemore moves to the bench, then his ability to be retained is going to be fairly limited, I would say. The Clippers and the Pelicans. Clippers, another huge win here. 2 in a row after a disappointing 3-game losing streak. Chrissy Paul, 17, 8, and 13. That's big. What's going on with Luke Marmute? 15 and 5 with 3 triples, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. What is going on with this guy? He is putting up some big numbers. He is a much improved player this season. I still think that he's only a 16 to 18 team league guy, but he's getting a lot of steals. He's hitting some threes. He's scoring, instead of 4 points a game, he's scoring 6 or 7 points a game. It's a big change, and 7 points isn't really helping you that much, but 4 points versus 7 it might make him more palatable, even on like a 14-team league, with his ability to get steals and block some shots and knock in some corner threes. Really impressed with Marmute this season. Blakey Griffin, a big night for him. Second night of a back-to-back. To do that, 27 and 10 with 2 blocks is a fantastic effort. 2 blocks for DeAndre as well with 13 boards. And Jamal Crawford, he stepped up and played 29 minutes with JJ Redick out. And he had 21 points. Now, Redick was resting in this one on a back-to-back, so they started Ray Felton, 12 points with 3 assists and 2 triples for Felton. He's just solid, he's steady, and he's a deep league guy who, if for some reason he had to be forced into a role like this moving forward, you would want to look at him in all 14-teamers and even consider it in 12-team leagues. Paul Pierce in the rotation, again ahead of Wes Johnson. Just that continues to be weird. Not a great Anthony Davis night. Hopefully you faded him in DFS because he had to leave the court with a shoulder issue. He came back on. He said it was some sort of weird muscle injury under his shoulder. He returned to the court. He ended up with 32 minutes, so everything looks to be okay. Still put up numbers, 21, 6, and 4 with a steal and a block, but not enough to reach that 12,000 plus value on FanDuel. Drew Holiday, not a good night for him. Timmy Frazier continues to not be really that great at the moment. 8, 2, and 8 in 31 minutes for Frazier. He should be clearly in your drop zone on your chopping block and be ready to move on. Terrence Jones got 29. He had 14 and 9 in his 29 minutes. He's as up and down as they come. And again, if he's on your team, if he's not the worst player on your team, he's going to be the second worst. So, yeah, his upside can be high, but his situation is not allowing that upside to be realized on most nights. This was a night that Anthony Brown played 25 minutes as well. So, that's obviously a little bit of a weird situation that a guy like Brown is playing as many minutes as possible. All those minutes are going to Tyreke Evans when he comes back. The Wizards and the Spurs. Marcin Gortat, 42 minutes with no Jan Mihinmi. This is your sell high time. 21 and 18 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. It is a monster performance from Gortat, but it is not happening. It is not continuing. Otto Porter continues to just defy all logic. 15 and 12 on 60% shooting with 4 steals. I said that potentially he's a sell high guy. I don't even know anymore because he just continually does it. And you have to think that at some point maybe it is just real. It's confusing though. Johnny Wall, 17, 2 and 15 with 3 steals. And Brad Beal played 30 minutes. So that is a huge relief that his minutes were down and it was a close game. 23 points for Beal, no other stats at all. Hopefully you've sold him off in that top 20 value. I don't know if you got that, but hopefully you're able to do it. He hit 5 triples and did nothing else. Markieff Morris played through that twisted ankle, 38 minutes, so he's clearly fine. 12, 4, and 3 with a block. I believe he is a guy that you want to own. And after 2 strong straight games, Kelly Oubre only the 13 minutes for 4 points, showing that he's a little bit away from being a 12-team league guy. The Spurs, They brought their players back. Kawhi, 23 and 5 with 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 triples. A nice, efficient night from Kawhi. Tone Parker was still out with a knee problem. Actually, a quad contusion. Sorry, my mistake. So Patty Mills played 28 minutes, 10, 4, and 8 for Mills. He has recently thrived with Parker out of the lineup. Manu was great as well, 13 with 7 assists. And the start went to Nicholas Laprovitola, who played 20 minutes, had 7 points, 3 assists, and a steal. And that's Pop's modus operandi. He will start Laprovitola and then give Mills the majority of minutes off the bench. LaMarcus Aldridge, still not really cracking it at the moment. 19 and 5 for Aldridge with a block. And you'd be happy to know that I executed a trade in a redraft league. I think it's my second this season. I traded away Aldridge and I got back George Hill. I think relatively fair in different categories, different needs. I was relatively happy with it. Just thought, let's mix it up a bit. My team was sliding a little bit. I had a lot of my point guard guys were injured, and there we go. And now George Hill's got a busted toe, but let's hope that doesn't keep him out too long. Very disappointed to see Dwayne Dedman get limited to just 8 minutes with foul trouble. Had 0 points and 4 boards, but you know that I'm a big Dedman fan. Houston at Denver. This is a monster win for Houston. They have looked very, very good so far this season. They've had a very tough schedule. They've been on the road the most out of every team. They just beat the Warriors on the road in a double overtime game, back-to-back in Denver, in altitude, take out the Nuggets by 18 points. They have been very, very good. Trevor Ariza, 16, 7, and 3 with 5 steals and 4 triples. Huge game, but did have to leave the game at the end with a leg injury. Let's hope that that's okay. Back-to-back big ones from Ryan Anderson as well, 18 and 6 with 4 triples. He did only play 25 minutes, but I guess it's because the game was a little bit out of hand that he was able to rest. Jimmy Harden, 26 and 7, a triple one. That's not a great performance, but you're still pretty happy with it. Clinty Capella, 13 and 10, and Pat Bev, 11, 3 and 6. What about my boy, Sam Decker? 28 minutes for Decker, 17 and 4, a 111. Man, this guy is climbing. He is absolutely climbing up, and I wouldn't put it past you to grab him in a 12-team league just to see where it goes. The path to consistent big minutes is tough. There was still no Nene in this game, who rested for the second game in a row. But Decker has been ridiculously impressive. He's more impressive than Corey Brewer. He's more impressive than Montrezl Harrell. He's more impressive than Ryan Anderson, I believe, a lot of the time. He is flying up to me, and there's a real chance that he is a top 120 guy by the end of the year. It's not a strong chance, but there is a definite chance. Like, I can look at a guy like KJ McDaniels and go, there's no chance of that happening. With Sam Decker, there is, and he continues to gain in confidence. And you see the guys that string together consistent performances. It takes D'Antoni a little bit of time, but the confidence with D'Antoni grows. And it happened with Clint Capella, and it's happening with Sam Decker at the moment. Really, really flying at the moment. Love to see it. On the Nuggets, no Nick Jokic. So Yusuf Nurkic had an opportunity, and he didn't take it. 20 minutes for Nurkic, 10 and 7 with 2 steals and a block. And I say he didn't take it. Those stats are still good. But when there is literally no other center on the roster and you play 20 out of 48 minutes, there is something wrong. Nurkic can be moved on from in most 12-team leagues, assuming you have a viable pickup to add instead. Wilson Chandler had 24, 4 and 2 with 3 triples, continues on his great year, while the Rooster went 16 and 5. Ken Fareed, double-double. He only played the 23 minutes. So we got Ken Fareed, we got Darrell Arthur out there playing some center. We had some One-Show playing 8 minutes out there. Now, Will Barton came back. You know I'm not a Will Barton fan, but to come back from an ankle injury, play 33 minutes and go 17, 7 and 5, that's very impressive. The fact that they played him that many minutes means that he's going to have this 30-minute or so role, at least until Gaz Harris returns. So, sure, he's a guy to own now. Long-term, he won't be, because Jamal Murray will start to eat into the minutes a bit more, and Harris will be back, and that will limit what Barton can do. But Murray played 17 here. Jameer Nelson went down to 19. Barton straight back in, played 33. And that's a really good performance. He's going to be streaky, and he's going to die when we get into... I hope he doesn't die. Literally, his value is going to die off once we head into mid-January or so. But a real nice performance in the first game back from Big Willie Barton. All right, that is the end of the games from, what day? Friday. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to talk DFS for Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the perfect DFS lineups now for Friday on FanDuel. Rajon Rondo 51.2 and Johnny Wall 44.9. Both of those guys were in decent spots. The Wall one against San Antonio wasn't brilliant, but he was still a pretty decent guy to look at. Shooting guards, Willie Barton. No way I would have touched him, so I wouldn't have got the perfect lineup here. 32.9. Or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope went 34.6. Small forward, Matty Barnes 42.7. I'm forever extolling the virtues of Matty Barnes. Just hasn't come together for me with him so far this year, but it did today. Jimmy Barnes, 50. Jimmy Barnes, shout out to Barnesy. Jimmy Butler, 53.6. Power forwards, Blakey Griffin, 47, and Taj Gibson at 44.7. I believe both those guys were some recommended picks from yesterday. And Al Horford at 55.1. Did not expect him to be that big. 406.7 is the total for that perfect lineup on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Chrissy Paul, 49.5. Jim Butler, 54.5. Barnesy, 46.5. Taj Gibson, 47.25. Horford at 58. Rondo at 58.25, 43.75 points worth of KOQ, and Marcin Gortat at 55 for a total of 412 and 75 points. All right, let's get stuck into these games and start banging them out as quickly as we can, without skimping on information, of course. The Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are favored by 10. They hammered the Nets in the last game. So many instances of this happening this season. This is the 4th or 5th time this season this has happened where teams have played the same team 2 games in a row, and here's obviously another one of them. This one's back in Milwaukee here. Let's look at the point guard matchup. Daly had his minutes limited the last time they played, only played 24. He is at 4,000. He's a little bit risky with the way that Kidd runs the rotation. At 4,000 though, I don't completely hate using Dellavedova, but I'm probably not relying upon him. He's more of a tournament type guy. Malcolm Brogdon, he played more minutes than Daly in the last game. He's at 3,700. I just don't believe his upside's high enough to take a punt on him in a tournament. While Isaiah Whitehead's playing minutes, but it's not really turning into huge production, so he's far from a great play. Shooting guard, love Giannis. 10,400. Who doesn't love Giannis? 10,400 for Giannis. Does anybody not like him? I don't think it's possible. Yeah, people will say, I don't like Steph Curry, I don't like James Harden, I can't stand LeBron, KD's a loser. Who dislikes Giannis? If anyone listening to this podcast dislikes Giannis, please let me know. And why? I don't think there's anybody that dislikes him. And it's very rare maybe because he hasn't ascended to true superstar status yet, but nobody dislikes Giannis. Nobody. Anyway, I love him here. 10,400 for Antetokounmpo. On the flip side here, not Trev Booker, Sean Kilpatrick, that's the shooting guard for Brooklyn. 5,600 for Kilpatrick. He dropped back a little bit in the last game against Milwaukee, and that's probably more realistic. 5,600 just feels a touch too high. I don't love it. He does have the ability to go big, so that does make him a tournament play, but he's far from a cash game reliable sort of guy. Small forward, Mick Beasley at 37, Tone Snell at 37. Both of those guys can give you 25 points. But they're far from reliable targets either. And Bojan Bogdanovic is always a guy that can drop 40 or could drop 5. That's just what he can do. He's at 4,200. I would really, really struggle to use him in a cash game on most days. Not using Rondé Hollis-Jefferson really at all. He's at 3,900. And coming off the bench with unsure minutes, it's really tough. Power forward, Jabari Parker. Still waiting on that non-restricted area paint jumper to go in. 6,400. Look, the matchup's good. He was okay against Brooklyn last time, 30 points. And 30 points at 6,400 is not far away from where you want it to be. Back at home, it could work out. So I'm not completely off using Jabari Parker. Trev Booker at 5,800, sure. A little bit quiet in the last game, only the 23 points. But getting 26 or 27 out of Booker has been basically his middle name for most of this season. Trevor Booker, 27-point Booker. It's an awkward birth certificate to fill out, I'm sure, for his parents. At centre, well, we've got options. We've got Johnny Henson, who is now averaging 31 over the last 3. He appears to be steady-ish around 24 minutes and maybe go higher. At 4,400, you absolutely have to consider John. Greg Monroe at 4,500. Well, he can put up 25 points in 20 minutes. Will he get 20 minutes? That's the concern. He was a little bit quiet in the last game. Obviously, out of those two, I'm taking Henson, but I'm not totally discounting Monroe. Brookie Lopez at 7,200 just consistently feels $500 too overpriced in most spots, and I think it's the same sort of situation here. Just a quick note, the Brooklyn Nets did sign Donatas Motiejunas to an offer sheet, a 4-year, $37 million contract with the last 2 years non-guaranteed. The Rockets have 72 hours to decide whether to match that. If he signs in Boston, he's not signing in Boston. If he signs in Brooklyn, I don't think that has any impact on Brook Lopez. I don't even think it has a massive impact on Trevor Booker. It's going to eliminate Luis Scola out of the rotation. And it's going to reduce what Justin Hamilton can do. He'll probably play a 22-minute role off the bench behind Booker and Lopez, and that's going to make him like 16-team, 14-team sort of situation. If Houston signs, I don't think it has any impact on Capella. I think it takes some away from Nene. It obviously hurts Montrezl Harrell. And I don't even think it has much of an impact on Sammy Dekker, to be honest. So his fantasy value is going to be higher in Brooklyn than it would be in Houston. Let's just see what Murray and the Houston Rockets do with that contract. All right, let's move on to the next game. We're talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Charlotte Hornets. We're in Charlotte for this one. The Hornets are favored by 6.5, and the total is 207 points. The only injury to really look at here is Brendan Rush, who is questionable with a toe injury, but that doesn't matter because he's not impacting us really at all. Let's look at point guards. Rick Rubio at 5,600 hasn't fallen enough on FanDuel. He is a pass to me. Kemba Walker at 8,300 does well normally against Minnesota, but has not really been, and I don't know why his salary's gone up by $300, but isn't really getting to that 40-point barrier much. He's playing well, but not getting to that 40-pointer, so I think both point guards are stay-away guys here. Shooting guards, Zachary LaVine at 6,000. I just think it's solid. It's a good matchup for him. He's getting a mountain of minutes. He's averaging 30 over the last 5. I feel pretty confident in saying Zach LaVine is going to be a really red-hot show of giving me 30 points. For the Hornets, Jeremy Lamb, no, probably not. Yeah, he's had some decent performances. He's at 4,100, but there's been so many fluky things about it that I just don't really buy into it here. Nick Batum at 6,700. His production's been a little bit down. Don't love it here. I just think that the way that Timberwolves have been defending the wings has been positive, and by positive I mean positive for Minnesota, restricting the impact that wings can have a lot of the time. Yeah, Batum has been a little bit off in terms of getting that 34, 35 point production. I just don't think it's a good spot for him. Small forward Andy Wiggins at 6,000, similar to that Zach LaVine spot, 6,000. 30 points. It feels comfortable. It feels like he can do it. The Michael Kidd-Gilchrist defense factor is a little bit of a concern for Wiggo. So if I'm spending 6,000 on Wiggo or Zachy, I'll probably take LaVine out of those two guys. As for Kidd-Gilchrist at 5,200, that's priced $400-500, too expensive. So I'll leave him out of it. Same with Shabazz or Marco Bellinelli. Power forwards, Frank the Tank Kaminsky, man, he's been terrible the last 2 games. Has not hit a shot. Not true. He's hit 1 shot in 2 games, missed 14 of them. That will clearly not continue to be the case. He's at 4,300. Marvin Williams is still out. He's going to get minutes if the shot falls. If he's, I have criticized coaches in the past. If you're not hitting your shots, why? They drag guys straight away. This is not a Fred Hoiberg, Nick Mirotic situation. This is a case where a guy is continually not hitting shots for massive stretches of the game. But I think if Kaminsky comes out and is solid in the first quarter, then he'll get 29, 30 minutes. And at 4,300, he should comfortably get that value. I don't have confidence in it, but I think that he's still... I'm okay going back to the well more than one time with a guy like Frank Kaminsky. Gorgie Jeng is very risky at $6,000. I won't go there. And Nemanja Bjelica had a good one today. He's at minimum salary, so that's always appealing. But yeah, that is surely just a tournament bet that we don't really know when that's going to take place. At center, Cody Zeller, 4,500. It looks great. The projections look good. He's been a bit down in production recently. I think that it's a good spot for Zeller, though. I think that he can put up some okay numbers. As for Karl Anthony Towns at 9,400, feels a tad tough. He won the Young Gun of the Night today and put up 33 DFS points. And that's far from what you want at 9,400. Not something I'm keen on. Aldridge was brilliant today. He put up 37 today, Cole Aldridge. He's at minimum salary. Do we trust that again? You know what? If Thibodeau says, all right, we need to get this guy into the game more, I can understand formulating one lineup with Aldridge in it, but unless we hear something out of Thibodeau, I don't think you can really rely upon that as being something that's likely to repeat itself, which is unfortunate because I do like Cole Aldridge a lot. Boston and Philadelphia, the Celtics will not have to trust the process in this one. There is no spread released just yet. Embiid is out. Jared Bayless is listed as questionable with left wrist soreness, and Bob Cove has his left knee sprain. He is questionable as well. So a few situations for us to look at. Let's start with the point guards. Bayless, we don't know if he's ready to go. At 3,700, if he plays, I would be absolutely fine putting him into a GPP and seeing what goes on. As for Isaiah Thomas, he's almost in that Kemba Walker situation where you're just struggling to get to 40 points, but he's at 8,100. He's averaging 37 over the last 3. He's not far away, and the matchup is quite a good one. Now, it's a back-to-back for both teams. If it was, say, not a back-to-back for Boston, and it was in Boston, I'd say maybe they limit Thomas in a blowout. I think at home, the Sixers have got a real chance of keeping it close enough that Thomas has to play pretty regular, maybe even elevated minutes, and that might enable him to get to 40. So I can see a reason for using Isaiah. If Bayless is out, then Sergio Rodriguez is an option. He's at 4,400. He's giving you about 24 points in the last couple of starts, which is almost sort of right on the money. Not a bad cash guy point guard to try and help get you through, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Shooting guard, Avery Bradley at 6,500. Look, a decent game today. Didn't quite reach value. I just don't. I'm not keen on using him at that price. Gerald Henderson, Marcus Smart, Sauce Castillo, Hollis Thompson. If Bob Covey's out, a guy like Hollis Thompson or Stauskas might have to play and start, and then move Gerald Henderson to the 3. And if one of those guys starts, you would absolutely have a look in a GPP. But in a tournament, I wouldn't feel confident with it. As for Covington, we don't know if he's playing at this point. He's always a fine tournament guy to look at. And Jay Crowder at 5,300, love that at that price. I think there's every chance in the world in a positive matchup for him. He gets to 27, 28, 30, 32 points. That's not a stretch at all for big Jay Crowder. For power forwards, Richaun Holmes, no Joel Embiid, so Holmes is going to get his 20 minutes, and he produces. He's over the last 5 games, he's giving you 45 points per 36 minutes. That's a pretty significant amount. You get 20 minutes, you get 24 points, 23 points, and at 3,800, your value's been returned. So I do like him there. Šarić and Ilyasova. Šarić put up 0 points today. That's a pretty significant effort. I wouldn't be using either of those two guys. Very tough to trust. And speaking of tough to trust, Amir Johnson and Jonas Jerebko are clearly in that same boat. As for centers, Jali Okafor playing well. At 4,400 as the starting center with no restrictions, I think that he can easily get you back $4,400 worth of value. Al Horford at 73. Will he drop another 55? That's unlikely. Will he get you 34? Maybe. I'm not loving it, but I definitely think that he can be used. I would rather take a guy like Okafor and spend that 3,000 somewhere else. But say I've got that 3,000 up my sleeve, then you're fine taking Horford. I think that 34, 35 is a pretty decent sort of expectation for him. Where are we now? We've got the Atlanta Hawks. They take on the Toronto Raptors. No spread released here. Paulie Millsap is out for this one already. He's been ruled out, so we don't know exactly what Mike Budenholzer is going to do. As I mentioned, he threatened changes to the lineups. He already changed it for last game, starting Thabo over Mike Muscala. The guy I do like is Dennis Schroeder. He only played 25 minutes today, still had 35 points. He's averaging 34 over the last 5. He's priced at $5,900 on FanDuel. Very hard to complain about that sort of a pricing. So Schroeder, fine to go for me. The defense of Kyle Lowry is a bit of a concern, but yeah, Schroeder's got a bit of a buffer between projection or production and salary, and that enables me to consider him. As for Lowry, 8,400, he's in the Thomas, he's in the Kemba Walker situation, where it just feels like it's just $400-500 too expensive. He had a good game today, put up 37 points. That's not quite $8,400 worth. The matchup is a real positive for Lowry, but how confident are you that he gets 42? I don't think you should be overly confident with it. Shooting guards. Kyle Korver, no, we're not touching him. DeMar DeRozan at 8,900, fine. He's just not. I'm not loving it for DFS for DeRozan at this moment. And Timmy Hardaway, if they decide to shake things up, I could definitely look at Hardaway in a GPP, but not in a cash game. At small forward, Kent Bazemore is very, very tough to rely upon. He had 13 points today. In his last 5 games, he's had a 9-pointer and he's had a 38-pointer. This is the way that he goes. He struggles, and both those games were in the same amount of minutes. He does struggle a lot at times, and against a Toronto team, it's not making me feel great about Bazemore's value. Damari Carroll should be back for this game. That's eliminating any value for Norm Powell and any real chance for Terrence Ross. As for Carroll at 4,300, I think you absolutely have to consider him at that price against his former team. That is a very, very cheap price, even though his production hasn't been great, averaging just 20 across the last 3. At 4,300, absolutely consider him. Tabo, even if he starts 4,300, I would rather take Damari Carroll. Power forwards, Mike Muscala at 3,900. Definitely a tournament guy, but has really, really struggled in these last couple of games with Paul Millsap out. Hasn't really been able to get that value back. But you could go back to that well and think that he can at least crack 20 points, which he hasn't in the last 2 games. For the Raptors power forwards, we don't looking at Siakam really. 4,400 for Pat. His numbers have been okay for 9-cat, 8-cat leagues, standard seasonal stuff. But in DFS, I'm just not all that interested at 4,400 on a day where there are 9 games on. At centre, Dwighty Howard really not living up to it at this present stage. Had a great start to the year, but isn't at the moment. 7,800 for Dwight, no thanks. Jonas Valanciunas at 58. The matchup's a terrible one for him as well, so he is a stay away. All right, the next game we're going to take a look at, we've got the Los Angeles Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are favored by 1. Yes, the Grizzlies are favored by 1. It's a total of 203. There is no Zach Randolph. There is no Vince Carter. Obviously, James Ennis, Mike Conley, Chandler Parsons, Brandon Wright, they're all out for Memphis. As for the Lakers, Larry Nance Jr. is dealing with that right knee contusion. He is questionable to play. The point guards, Andy Harrison's salary has risen to 4,300 on FanDuel. He had 28 in the last game, though, so 28 at 4,300, you'd still take that. He's looked good these last 2 starts. I think he's absolutely fine to use at 4,900. Wadey Baldwin, no thanks. On the Lakers, Huertas and Calderon, that's not happening either. For the shooting guards, I like a bit here. I like Tone Allen at 4,000. I think he's going to, we know he's going to get some pretty consistent minutes, and to get 20 points out of Tone Allen is far from a stretch. Love that there. Louis Williams at 52. Had a not great day today, but getting 25 out of Lou has been a fairly consistent phenomena for most of this season. So Lou Williams in play. Jordy Clarkson at 55, also worth a look. He's been a little bit down the last couple. The Tony Allen defense is somewhat of a concern, but not enough to completely steer me clear. And 3,700 for Troy Daniels. Got red hot the last 2 games. Do I put any faith in that? No, I don't. But in a tournament, I can totally see why you'd throw him in there and hope to get 37. Hope to get 23 or 24 points at $3,700. Small forwards, Troy Williams, 37 as well. I would rather Williams over Daniels just because Williams is starting and he's playing more minutes. Yes, Daniels has been more productive in terms of his scoring over the last couple, but Williams is still getting that extra playing time that's working in his favour. Brandon Ingram, 4,000. Yep, absolutely. Fine. Go for it. He's averaging 24 over the last 3. Dropped 26 today. The minutes are there. The production's ramping up. Absolutely fine to use him. For the power forwards, Jermichael Green at 47. Yeah, I just think that's 24 points-ish, and that's fine at 4,700, but that's sort of where he is. Like, I don't know how much higher he goes. Jarrell Martin at 35, I'm not that keen on, although he has been decent, but really not a high ceiling on Jarrell Martin. As for the Lakers, Nance with a knee, I'm not trusting that, and Julius Randle, he's just not a $6,600 player at this point, especially in this sort of a negative matchup, and if he has to get matched up on Marc Gasol at times, it could be bad. Speaking of Gasol, he's at 7,100, fine. Good matchup. He's been outproducing that in most games. Absolutely no issue with using Marc Gasol, and obviously Tariq Black and Tim Mozgov. They're not going to really dent the scoring too much here. All right, we'll go to Chicago and Dallas. The Bulls are favored by 4, and the total is a lackluster 189 points. I mentioned already that Dwayne Wade is out. We don't know the status of Seth Curry. He is questionable for Dallas at point guard. Rajon Rondo's at 5,900. As I mentioned earlier, Dallas does a really good job at stopping point guards, but Rondo has been playing at an elevated level. I think that we get a pretty decent Rondo game. Now, the other thing that could happen here is that Carlisle hacks him. I think we might see that a little bit, and that could limit what Rondo does and might make you just restrict him to tournaments, but I still think he's a pretty decent bet to get at least close-ish to 30 points. He's definitely not in as favourable position as he has been for the last couple of games. Isaiah Cannon, Darren Williams, Williams has been good, but at 5,700, he needs to be like 47 at this point for me to consider him a guy to use. Wes Matthews at 4,800, just a tournament guy, I believe. Denzel Valentine will get some extra run, but probably not enough for us, or not enough production for us to really consider him for DFS. The pencil at 6,100, yeah, that's fine. It's a good matchup for the pencil against Chicago. They do allow small forwards and power forwards to put up some pretty impressive numbers. So 6,100 for the pencil is fine to get you 30 plus points. He's giving you 32 anyway over the last 3, so absolutely okay there. Justin Anderson, Jim Butler, we're not using Anderson. As for Butler, flying 8,800s, maybe pushing it a little bit, especially again in a slow-paced environment. I think he's a likely fade to me. Power forward, Mirotic at 4,200. This is assuming he starts. If he starts like he did the last time without Wade, I think we should easily be looking at 25 plus and at 4,200. That's exactly what you need to do. In a tournament, he might be very highly owned, so could be a fade situation, but watch him. 5,800 for Taj Gibson continually gives you that sort of value. He had 45 today, which is huge. Love using Taj at that price point, and Dwight Powell is always a risky bet. For the centre position, Rob Lopez at 53 let us down a little bit today. Has been a little bit under budget in the last couple of games, but I think that in this matchup at 5,300, for him to get to 25 is far from a stretch. And Bogut at 4,600, I like the matchup for Bogut as well. He had 26 in the last game. He's coming off a rest. I think he's all right at 4,600 in a matchup with no Dirk Nowitzki. He can definitely have an impact here, Bogut. 3 games to go. Next up, we've got the Denver Nuggets taking on the Utah Jazz. We don't know if Nikola Jokic is going to play for Denver. We've got George Hill, who's doubtful for Utah, and Rod Hood is questionable with his hamstring. So they're the injuries for this game. We have got the no spread released for this one. I guess we're just checking on the Hood and Jokic statuses before we really start to get into it there. We're assuming that George Hill is out. Shelvin Mack had 25 points in the last game. He played the bulk of the minutes at point guard at 3,600. It is a risk because they might not start Mack, but given the way that Quinn Snyder's been handling Dante Exum recently, you'd have to be fairly confident that Mack's going to get the bulk of the minutes, and he is a way better per minute producer than what Exum is. So fine at almost minimum salary for Mack, absolutely fine with using him. As for Manuel Mudiay, 5,800, I don't love the matchup. I think he could get really, really in a lot of trouble when he has to drive in against Gobert. Jamal Murray, Jameer Nelson, Dante Exum, none of those guys are really worth too much of a look. Willie Barton at 48 was enormous today, as I mentioned. There's still somewhat of a risk, but I'm absolutely cool with using him. And 5,300 for Rod Hood, well, we don't know if he's playing, so he's obviously going to be a tough one to slot in. Small forward, the Rooster, 6,000. Been a little bit under budget the last couple. The matchup makes me probably steer clear there. Whereas Gordy Hayward at 79, flying. He's averaging 45 over the last 3. Dropped to 50 in the last game. Taking a lot of Hoods and Hills usage and putting it to good use. He is absolutely fine to use at that high price tag, and you should feel fairly confident of getting 40 points out of Hayward. He's got a pretty strong record against Denver in the past as well. Wilson Chandler at 6,300. That salary's it's a decent salary. Bounced back with a nice game today. I think he's okay to use. I would rather go higher on Hayward or lower on Gallo, but absolutely fine. Chandler should be in your pool of guys that you're considering for lineups. Joey Ingles or Joey Johnson are the 2 guys who will likely replace Hood. Johnson had 28 at 3,700 in the last game. Sure, that is absolutely fantastic for DFS. And Ingles had 26 in his 26 minutes. Another guy in a tournament has an absolute right to be used. Power forwards, we've got Jokic. Hey, I'd love it if he played, but we don't know that at this point. I would consider him if he happened to play, but it's not a good matchup going up against Gobert, so even then that makes it a tad risky. As for the Nuggets, Ken Fareed had 30 today. He's at 5,900. I just feel that's just marginally too high. And Trey Lyles at 4,200. Well, he had a nice game in the last one, but he still didn't crack 20 points. Not a DFS target of mine. Center, Gobert is at 7,000. Just really limiting what other people can do. I think he's okay, but he's far from the best center option that's out there. And Yusuf Nurkic, look, I would give him another crack in a tournament if Jokic happens to be out. But if Jokic is playing, I don't think there's any way that you can look at Nurkic and go, yeah, you know what, he's the guy that I'm going to put my trust in for this matchup. Miami and Portland. The Blazers are favoured by 6.5, and the total here is 214.5 points. Injuries. We don't know if Derek Williams is playing. He's questionable. He was also out of the rotation the game before his back injury, so whether he plays or not, we don't know. But we'd have to assume that with Luke Babbitt likely out, he's listed as doubtful, Williams would come back into the rotation. Neither of those guys are touching the fantasy sides, though. Joshie Richardson is also out, as is Justice Winslow. And on the Portland side, Al-Farouq Aminu is still out, but looking to return pretty soon from his calf injury. So he is another guy in standard leagues that you can look to grab and go with from there. Point guards, Goran Dragic at 7,100. He has been playing fantastically. How's the matchup of Dame Lillard suit you? Oh, I don't think it should be too much of a concern at all. Though Lillard and the Blazers have been a little bit better against point point guards recently. I think that 7,100 for Dragic is a solid, fine price. I would rather spend that than say your 8-3, 8-4s on Lowry, Kemba, Isaiah Thomas, that trio of guys. On the Tyler Johnson, 51, decent without a massive upside. I think that he is okay there. And Dame Lillard at 9,600. I don't like the matchup. Lillard is always quite variable in what he does. He has struggled previously against Miami. I don't like it for Lillard here. In a tournament, sure. In a cash game, I feel like it's pretty suicidal. Shooting guards, Wayne Ellington's been great since returning. The price is up to 4,300 though, and he has been great, but he's averaging just 23 points. So do we expect him to be much better than what he was to exceed that value? I reckon that's going to be tough. So he's probably not someone I'm that interested in. 75 for CJ McCollum. The matchup's horrible. His numbers have been good recently, but I really don't like using him here. Alan Crabbett and Scooter Magruder, we won't be looking at those guys. Small forward, I'm going to say Mo Harkless. He's at 5,100. You pretty much get 29 every night from Mo Harkless, so absolutely love that. And James Johnson at 5,000 is another great option on the Miami side of things, who's been really, really solid for this team for most of the season. And Evan Turner's actually cranking his numbers up. Had 31 in the last game. He played well against Miami when he was a member of the Celtics. I think that at 4,500 you can absolutely pivot to Turner in a tournament and enable yourself to get a guy like a Jim Butler in, or some other of these higher priced players that you might be able to fit in if you go cheaper at the small forward position. Eddie Davis is starting. It's not meaning anything though. He's at 3,600, sure, in a tournament, but really not much faith. Joshua McRoberts, the same story. He'll likely start again. And Myers Leonard, Derek Williams, there's not a lot to love with the power forwards. At centre, love both these guys. Mason Plumlee at 6,000. Yeah, the salary is rising. Not high enough, though. This is absolutely fine. You should be expecting 30. His lowest score over the last 5 has been 24. His highest is 42. He's just been consistently, and he should give you 30. Hassan Whiteside's been down the last couple. Actually, that's not true. He was down the last game against Gobert. Plumlee versus Gobert is a little bit of a different story. He's done really well against Portland in the past. He's at 8,600. I'd rather spend my 8,600 on Whiteside than, say, on one of those point guards that I mentioned earlier. So very, very interested in Hassan here. One more game to go, and it's the Phoenix Suns and the Golden State Warriors. The last time these two teams played, when Golden State traveled to Phoenix, the Suns really took it up to them really hard in the first quarter. Really fast paced. The Warriors got it going after that, but they did take it up to them early. The Warriors are favoured by 16.5. That is a huge margin. The total is 230. It's at home. That puts some concern in a few of these Warriors guys. Now, the matchup is really good for them, so even if they don't play 35, 36 minutes and get just 33, they put themselves in decent positions. Steph Curry at 9,500. He can easily go out and drop 45 points on the Suns. I think that he's a pretty decent guy to take a look at. As for not Durant, we'll get to him in a second. Eric Bledsoe on the flip side, 8,100. He's obviously been playing very well. A little bit of a down performance in the last game, but I'm okay with considering Bledsoe. He's, again, in that $8,000 point guard bracket with those other blokes that I talked about earlier. For the shooting guards, Clay's at 6,000. I don't think that Clay is quite as susceptible to a cut in minutes at that lower salary. His shooting was obviously horrible against Houston, and you'd have to think that he has somewhat of a bounce back here. Brandon Knight had 33 in the last game, put zero faith in that. He's at 4,300. I would look at him in a tournament only because he does have upside. I don't think I'd look at Devin Booker really anywhere. He's at 5,900. The salary just hasn't come down far enough for me to feel a huge amount of confidence in him. And Barbosa, McCaw, and Clark, they're not going to be of use. Small forward PJ Tucker's at 4,100. He's not bad for cash at this point. He's averaging 21.5 over the last 3. Just some solid, consistent numbers without very much upside. He's far from a great option. It was Kevin Durant at 10,500. The salary is pretty big, and there is a blowout risk. But 10,500, I think Durant can get 50 in 30 minutes. I don't think that's saying or trying to stretch him too much. Power forwards, Dudley's at 3,800. I think that Dudley's not a bad play here because the Warriors might force the Suns to not have Alex Len. to not have Tyson Chandler out on the floor for big amounts of minutes, and that might mean more Dudley out there. So 3,800, I think Dudley's one of the sneaky tournament punt options that are out there. Draymond's at 8,000, same story for Curry, same story for Durant. Draymond had a massive 54 in that game against Houston, and he's at one of the more appealing, expensive power forwards. Alex Len, not a good matchup. I won't be looking at him. And Marquise Chris and David West, not interesting. At center, Zaza, Tyson Chandler, you can do better than both of those guys. All right, let's look now at the picks of the day before we wrap this up. On FanDuel, Andy Harrison, 43, Dennis Schroeder, 59, and Steph at 9,500 with all the caveats that I mentioned. Tone Allen, shooting guard, 4,000, Clay, 6,000, and the man, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 10,400. For the small forwards, Troy Williams, 37, Jay Crowder, 53, and Durant at 10,500. Power forwards, Nick Mirotic, 42, Trevor Booker, 58, and Draymond at 8,000. And the centers, Jali Okafor, 44, Mason Plumlee, 6,000, and Hassan Whiteside, 8,600. On DraftKings, Shelvin, return to the MAC, 3,600. Dennis Schroeder, 6,000, and Curry at 91. Will the Thrill Barton at 9,300. Lou Williams, 5,700, and Jimmy Butler at 84. Troy Williams, 41. The Rooster at 52. I love the Rooster at 52. And Durant at 10,700. Nick Mirotic, 43. Jabari, 64. And Draymond, 82. And the centers, Johnny Henson, 44. Mason Plumlee, 6,000. And Hassan Whiteside, 9,000. All you Aussies that are playing here on a Sunday morning, Moneyball, Andy Harrison, minimum salary, go ahead. Dennis Schroeder, 54, love it. And Steph is at 89. For the shooting guards, Farton Will Barton at 3,500, Zach LaVine at 5,400, and DeMar DeRozan at 8,700. Small forwards, Jay Crowder, 44, the Rooster, 52, and Yanni at 10,000. Johnny Henson, a power forward, minimum salary. If he's not in your lineup, I think that you are doing it completely wrong. Draymond at 7,400. No real high-priced power forwards on Moneyball. There are no power forwards priced over 8,000 on Moneyball at all. Centers, Andy Bogut, 38. Marc Gasol, 6,900.
Giggity.
Should have been prepared for that. Hassan Whiteside, 8,600. On Draft Stars, Andy Harrison, 5,050. Lou Williams, 8,750. Lowry, 14,650. Shooting guards, Troy Williams, 5,000. Tony Allen, 8,000. And DeMar DeRozan, 15,100. Small forwards, I've got Troy Williams there again. Not really sure. One of those is supposed to be Troy Daniels. Troy Williams and Troy Daniels are both minimum salary on Draft Stars. So Troy Daniels is a GPP option. Jim Johnson, 5,750. And Wilson Chandler, 8,950. And Jim Butler, 15,60. Power forwards, Richaun Holmes, 5,850. Cody Zeller, 9,100, and Draymond, 15,650. And the centers, Mike Muscala as a punt at 5,550, Mason Plumlee, 9,450, and Hassan Whiteside, 17,550. We are done for today's show, guys. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Check out my t-shirts at tpublic.com/user/redrock_bball. Basketball Monster, the Locked On Podcast Network, you know all the places. Check out the sponsors of the show. We've had Mac Weldon on with the promo code of ALLOFB, SeatGeek with Allo Fantasy, Athletes Collective with Allo Fantasy as well. Check out all those things. I know another listener messaged me the other day, messaged me with some. I just had a little note passed to me then by my son, which I'll mention. Actually, I'll give you an anecdote about my son. He saw my t-shirt store and he said, you know what, I want to make some t-shirts. Fine. So he has designed his own t-shirts. He's got his own t-shirt store. So if you go to tpublic.com/user/Ben Lloyd, that's it. He's got 4 t-shirts up there, I believe, all based on games from his iPad, Monster Legends and Clash Royale. So check out his t-shirts, and if you're so inclined to buy one, these are the t-shirts that he designed, all his stuff. Have a look at that. The other interesting anecdote I've got about Ben, he plays the guitar. Right, so he's got his school concert coming up next week where he does like a solo piece and a piece in a duo. So he comes and he goes, I go, what songs are you doing for your end of term concert? These are the songs I'm doing. All right, I'm doing Smoke on the Water. It's a pretty standard guitar song. Yep, cool. That's a standard guitar song. I'm also doing Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like what? How old am I that the kids are doing Smells Like Teen Spirit in the school concert? So he's coming in here to show everyone his guitar. Yep, there it is. There's his guitar. For you guys watching on YouTube, thanks Ben. There's the guitar. So he comes in like, oh, I'm going to do Smells Like Teen Spirit. So we're here today, both our guitars plugged in with the amps. I go, oh, yeah, We'll play it. We'll both play the rhythm section. Comes to the solo, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'll handle the solo." Rips out a solo. Like, what? He's 9 years old, and I go, "I can't play the solo, so let me just strum here like an idiot and play the rhythm section while you're standing up, full rock star stance and dropping in solos." That's the end of my anecdote. Just a little bit of extra bullcrap at the end of the show. We are done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Nolan's Noel.